Good evening. This is the March meeting of the Wyoming Board of Education. I call this meeting to order. May I have an opening roll call?
Mrs. Broderick?
Here.
Mr. Meese?
Here.
Mr. Thomas? I see Mr. Thomas. He's muted. And I'm not sure if he can hear me, but I do see him. So I'm going to mark him here.
Okay.
Mrs. G?
Here.
Mrs. Zoller?
Here. All right. Would you all please join me in the pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to
one nation
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Justice for all. Thank you. All right, let me put that out of the way. Recognition of the public is something we are now back to doing each month. Remember, we ask you to submit a video, which we would show at this time. We do not have any unless something came in at the last minute. All right, thank you. We'll go on then to board committee reports, and the Finance Committee met this evening. So please begin.
I'll start if that's okay.
Please do.
Thank you. Finance Committee met earlier this evening, and our agenda included, we always look at our salary and benefit analytic. We track our salary and benefit expenditures against the forecast. It's about 85% of our budget. So at every meeting, we spend a few minutes at the start of our meeting just looking at where we are in terms of that line item. We also took a look at an updated list of all of our stimulus funds. At this point, we've received some coronavirus relief funds, some broadband connectivity funds, and 2 rounds of federal ESSER stimulus money. In the most recent relief package passed by the federal government, there is an allocation for public schools. Ohio has not finalized that allocation, so we just took a preliminary look at what that might be, and had some preliminary discussion about what we've learned so far about restrictions and requirements about those funds. So more to come on that as our allocation is finalized and the requirements for expenditures are also finalized by the feds and the state, and then the funds are actually delivered to us. We spent some time looking at our substitute cost in the year of a pandemic. We've certainly been challenged by quarantine and all the other things that come along with a pandemic. So we took a look at some of our substitute costs and where those were trending against our 4-year average. Our 4-year average, we spend about $250,000 a year on substitutes, and actually really excited that we're going to come in maybe right hit that, or maybe just a smidge over it. So happy with those figures as we see them right now, unless something takes a different turn. We also took a look at our textbook adoption cycles, looked at a 7-year history of what we've been spending on textbooks, and then looked at a 6-year textbook forecast and the subjects that are slotted for adoption in certain years, and talked about how our textbook adoption cycle works. And it was great to have the insight of our 2 teachers who serve on that committee, both department chairs, who were able to kind of weigh in on that conversation. So other members, if you want to chime in on anything I missed, those are the highlights.
I think you covered it. Thanks, Rhonda.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. The Citizens Advisory Committee, I believe you have an update. Someone has an update.
We do. I'll start off, and then we can expand on this. We did have our last meeting on March 11th, and during the meeting, we had a discussion about some of the things happening in the district. And with the CAC team, we shared that we had created recently our new facilities committee, and we'll hear more about facilities here in the meeting tonight. We also spoke about the planning that's being done right now for the opening of the 2021-22 school year, and hopefully moving out of a pandemic into a situation that seems much more normal. And we spoke a little bit about the strategic planning process. So in the coming weeks, we'll hear more and more about strategic planning and how we can pull together data to help drive those conversations, those rich conversations next year throughout that entire process. we have our two study teams, the school start times study team and the school financial planning study team will be soon reporting to the Board of Education. On April 19th, the school start times team will be sharing their work with the board. And then on May 24th, the school financial planning team will be coming to the board meeting to share their study and their findings from the study.
All right. All right.
Anything
Thank
else,
you.
Heather, Ilya? Good.
Just read an article about the fact that with kids online this year, that whole business of sleeping late, sleeping early, riding the bus for 2 hours has been kind of a non-problem this year. And the question
Right.
is, has that done better for the child's psyche to not have that extra hour of sleep ripped out of them?
Interesting.
Let's go to business advisory, except they did not meet. So community engagement. Does anyone have something they'd like to put in there?
I do not. No.
Okay, I thought I heard somebody, but I couldn't see a mouth.
I
move.
think. they might be- Oh, hi.
This is the point where Wyoming School Foundation would come in, right? In that
Yes.
sort of things.
Yes.
So just wanted to celebrate a lot of the progress that group has made. I mean, they're ahead of their projected giving and kind of their budgetary kind of considerations for this point in the year, planning for the poker, sort of like, what does it call them? It's like, anyway, the fun run has been transferred into something that's a poker-based kind of scavenger hunt sort of a thing that will be engaging with families and whatnot. And so that's going to be, I believe it's April 25th. And so excited about that as yet another additional thing coming this year, but really celebrated the blue, white, and brew. We did it differently in January, but really strong results from that and really a lot of momentum, with what that team is doing. And so just celebrating that. So just wanted to mention that from this past meeting.
Terrific. Thank you.
I
Anyone
do
else?
think too, just to say, I know PSA, we kind of keep missing one another. So I just want to make sure that we know too, we're thankful that with this year of changes that they've been adjusting and pivoting as well and doing freedom of fundraising. Raquel and I just haven't been able to connect together. So we're just trying. I wanted to just put it out there how much I know that everyone's working hard to support the schools and grateful for it.
Have they made a decision yet on Mayfate?
If they have, I'm not aware of it.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. The Equity, Inclusion, and Anti-Racism Committee.
Okay, I'll jump in here. We are going to be scheduling our next meeting here in the coming weeks. And so that's the board level committee. We'll be meeting here soon to talk about progress that's been made, how we're going to be transitioning the work into where we go next year during the 21-22 school year. But lots has been happening over the last 4 to 6 weeks to continue this work. Most recently, we did have a guest, Scott Spera came, and we also had the research team from Wyoming Community in Action team who met with our leadership team to talk about recruitment, hiring, and retention of employees, which was very useful information at the time we're entering in right now during the spring, where we're looking at different positions and hiring the very best people. And so that information is great to support the goals that we have to hire the best candidates that also allow us to better mirror our student demographics and our student population. So we're excited about that information that was shared with us. Great information, and again, very, very timely. Our Belonging and Inclusion Collaborative team is meeting tomorrow. And so we'll be reviewing all of the things that are happening in the district and start talking about how we pull together to optimize that team and their expertise and the work that we're going to be doing next year. And so lots to come.
Good work.
Mhm.
All right, I'm going to move on then. The Facilities Committee had its first meeting. Is there a report?
Do you want me to start with this one?
Sure, that'd be great. Thanks, Rhonda.
We held our first meeting on March 18th, newly formed committee, me, Tim, Heather, Ilya, and Jan Wilking. And we started out with just sort of get organized and a review of our goals. Our goals included to just increase our knowledge and awareness of the Wyoming facilities footprint, review historical facility improvements, including funding sources, use data to build permanent improvement plan to meet future facility needs and prioritize resources for future facility needs that ultimately impact our instructional goals. And that is a good amount of work. So we got started at our meeting on the 18th, and we just started with goal number 1, which is to increase knowledge of Wyoming facility footprint. So we started with just some really high level awareness data about each of our buildings. And when we say buildings, we kind of mean everything that they encompass. So we started with that work and sort of built ourselves a meeting schedule so that we could get in the rhythm of a good functioning committee. Anything I missed?
No, I just want to say, Ilya and I both, I don't want to speak for him, but how like excited we were to be on it. And we're like, I think you said it, Ilya, you're like, who knew it could be so exciting? And you did, Rhonda. You're like, I have, but I thought just from that hour, that big picture view for me already, I was telling my family, like when the schools were built and just that knowledge that I think everybody doesn't have. So it's going to be very helpful as a board member to be able to answer that. And I'm excited to see all the facilities and really kind of dive into it. It was very informative. Thank you.
Yeah, I will say I'm excited about, I think a day kind of, we're about to do in the summer, a tour of all the buildings to understand what's seen, what's recognized as what needs to come, because the hope for me is that we just continue to support what Ron and others have been doing historically to get out ahead of some of the larger ticket items so we can manage the resources well in the district. We can be intentional on how we use different resources and funding that we have to do various things and getting a chance to participate, in that. I was telling them, I'm a mechanical engineer. So a lot of times I would go to the plant, I'll be looking at how the package was made and all the little things of it. So walking around in the tour, I'm excited. I was like, you got a little bit more time, for my geeking out, on just some of the, the airflow, this or that, or what have you. But I'm excited to participate with the team, and Jan and Ron have been leading this in a great way. So I'm thankful to participate with them.
Great. All right.
I also wanted to apologize to you all. I got home late from taking my daughter to physical therapy. And so my wife made dinner, and I'm trying to eat it while it's reasonably warm and not go off camera. So I'm going to try to eat as graciously as possible while paying full attention to what we're talking about.
No problem. Okay. Planning and goal setting. Kara and I have met with Tim. If you want to bring us up to date, Tim, we really are just we continue to look at strategic plan, and we continue to look at next year, school year 21-22.
Yeah, so I'll just capitalize on that. It sounds simple, but it's actually a really big deal to be in a position where we can start talking about the things that make us better. And so that's very exciting. And so we've been having conversations with our department chairs, our district leadership team, about what district goals help to capitalize on the successes of the past, but make us better in the future. And so we're having those conversations right now at a district level around in our 4 main areas: teaching and learning. So what practices in the classroom make a difference? Climate and culture. How can we create a culture where people feel valued, connected, and part of the system? That whole sense of belonging that we've talked about. Communication. How do we connect with people so that they're aware of what's happening, feel as though they have a part in what's happening in our school district? And then financial stewardship. Obviously, how can we best manage and utilize the resources that our community graciously provides for us? And so we're having those conversations right now at a district level. We are right on track to be finalizing our district goals soon in those 4 areas. And then building teams use that information to create building plans, building goals and actions. And so ideally, buildings have identified those critical goals and actions that connect with the district goals before they go out for the summer. And so over the summer, then our department chairs and our building leadership teams use that information to create professional development plans for the days that we have professional development days during the course of the year, for how we spend our staff meetings, for the critical work that we do. Again, it's all about continuous improvement and how do we make ourselves better. No different from students growing, our adults try to grow, and we try to do things better year after year. And it's great to be back into that cycle of planning that important work.
Okay, I want to thank you, because I think the whole concept of not only having those goals in place before this year's over, so that the summer program can set up and aim us at, we start off running that way in the next school year. And I appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
I also like the fact that you have so many people involved, especially on the professional development days, that we will make good use of that time and the energy those teachers will be bringing to that program. Thank you.
Agree.
All right, policy review committee, if you don't mind, we'll just skip right now because we've got a big chunk coming up later. And student achievement, there was a DLT meeting right before the break.
Yep. So our district leadership team, very similar. So we spoke about what's next and how do we grow from where we are right now. And so one of the items that was part of that conversation is what I just shared. So our district goal planning. We also spoke about the opening of the 21-22 school year and how do we move from a pandemic situation into what seems to be more of a normal type of a situation? What kinds of things should we be considering? And how do we capitalize on what we've learned over the course of the past year, but then create something new from that? We also spoke about the strategic planning process, looked at the timeline, again, beginning here in the spring to gather data and then go through that process in the following school year. And then we looked at the 2022-2023 district calendars. And so we're in the process right now of trying to create a calendar, and hopefully within, I think, maybe the next month, we'll be able to bring a proposed calendar for a first look to the Board of Education here in the next meeting, hopefully.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments? All right, so the next thing on our agenda is a special presentation. We are going to welcome tonight, he'll come up on screen in just a minute, Justin Buckner. Justin Buckner serves as our representative to the Great Oaks campuses. He's our board member, and we thank him for that. He's in the second year of his second term, no less. So he's our authority in the field on the Great Oaks District and is going to bring us up to date. Thank you, Justin. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah. Good. Perfect.
Great. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to share a presentation here. And so happy to represent Wyoming for the Great Oaks School District, which has been amazing. I can't believe it's been as long. I'm almost one of those long standers, not quite the 30 years that some of the representatives have, but it's been a great experience for me so far. So just want to give you a quick update on what's going on with Great Oaks. And if you've got any questions, feel free to ask me afterwards, or you can ask me during as well. But again, I live here in Wyoming and at your disposal. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So the first thing I just wanted to highlight, obviously we're all dealing with COVID, and Great Oaks was doing the same thing. So when school started at the beginning of the year, they were on a hybrid program. And this is just an example of a schedule. So all of the academic classes were held virtually, and the students had an opportunity a couple of times a week to actually be on site, on campus, working with their particular programs. So it was something that we all had to deal with. I felt like the Oaks program, over at all the different buildings, did a great job of managing social distancing in the classes, and fortunately, the school is now back full time in person starting fourth quarter. I just wanted to share a couple of pictures. This is from the culinary program. You can kind of see this is Chef Molly Mundro, how she did one of her programs virtually. You've got the screens where she's cooking, and this is just an example of how everyone, whether it's Wyoming, Great Oaks, wherever, had to be creative to make sure our kids got the learning that they needed. So, but again, like I said, we are back full time, back in person, and really they're still taking advantage of library space, extra lunch periods, just to accommodate social distancing. So from a COVID perspective, pandemic perspective, Great Oaks, weathered the storm just like we did with Wyoming, and the students are still doing well. They're thriving. In fact, I've got a copy of the report card from Great Oaks' results from the Ohio Career Tech report card. This is 99% graduation rate. This is 84% 98.8 technical assessment passes. These are all the assessments that the students take, as they're getting ready to graduate. And then 50.7% earn college credit for their career tech classes, which is amazing. You can actually get college credit as you prepare after high school, and for students who are decided to go on to college. So overall, the Great Oaks District is doing a great job just managing the students, managing COVID and everything. From a Wyoming perspective, we've got really great representation. We've got 12 students enrolled full-time on Great Oaks campuses, and you can see the programs here, everything from commercial and residential electricity to cosmetology, IT and academic. We do have a quote from a student who's in the exercise science program. There was a video interview. The video quality wasn't great, but a couple of the comments that she made, this was Abby Gerdicke. I'm really passionate about the physical rehab process after an injury. It was truly a great way to get ahead, for college. It prepared me for college by having great lab teachers that care. And really, it says people who knew me before have commented on how much more confident that she's become, and really the ability to talk to new people, enter new situations. So really, I feel like just in hearing anecdotes, hearing comments from students like Abby, Wyoming's enrollment with our 12 students, that's going well so far. Variety of different programs. So I think that it's not kind of a one-stop shop for everybody. So I feel like we're really doing a good job, making sure that the students who do want to participate in the Oaks program full time are doing well and thriving there. From a satellite perspective, the main satellite programs that we have is really around business management. I don't know if everyone's aware of that, but we've got 121 students enrolled in the business management overall program. And those really, the instructor is Dennis Schaper. He's done a great job. It's a 9 through 12 program. The official parts of the program to be a completer are business management 1, 2, and the internship. But there's a business foundations and marketing principles class that everyone is able to participate in, 9 through 12. If you want to get a head up, a leg up in the business world. And I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on that because I was just super impressed with the work that Dennis and that program is doing. More specifically on the affiliations that we're a part of. So whether you know it or not, Wyoming in the business management program in previous years was part of the Business Professionals of America. And this is a huge, both these organizations and DECA are huge national, multinational organizations. You see the chapter numbers down here for Business Professionals of America. And this year, Wyoming just joined DECA. BPA, 45,000 members, 1,800 chapters, 25 states. DECA, 225,000 members, 3,900 high school and college chapters. These are very large, very prominent, call it career tech, but I'd say more than career tech programs and organizations that our students have an opportunity to get involved in. And this is just a satellite program. And again, that's 121 students that are involved in the satellite program. And they're all about, obviously career tech's a big part of it, but it's really about creating leaders, focusing on marketing, finance. You see on BPA, it was around education, community service, personal development. And I bring these up because our students who are participating in the business management program, those big three I mentioned here, are competing in statewide national programs and are doing well. They're kicking butt. I just wanted to highlight a couple of points there. So this year we joined DECA. That was the program that says emerging leaders and entrepreneurs and finance. That's the big one. DECA is the big national program. So this year for DECA, we had 13 students qualify for state level competition, 7 advanced to the finals, 6 finished in the top 10, and we've got Jonah Berry who finished 2nd overall. Right, he qualified for an international competition that's coming up in April. That's huge. That's awesome that Jonah's getting to be able to participate internationally, but all the students that participated, these are skills and experiences with these big organizations that they'll be able to take with them in college and afterwards. So coming through Wyoming and all that, I really felt like that was huge. Last year, even with the BPA, Business Professionals of America, we had 3 students finish in the top 5 in Ohio to compete nationally. Here they're named Andrew Cheney, Sean Schaper, and Sam Black, and you see their programs. Sam Black finished first in all of Ohio. He's going to compete. All these folks were going to compete in national competitions, but unfortunately, because of COVID, they weren't able to participate in the national parts of that. But this is really great. These are students who are part of the satellite program in business management that are participating in these huge organizations and doing well. And I really feel like these are great programs that we just need to extend and make sure that the folks are aware, because it really does, I feel, set you apart when you're thinking about college and work, and gives you great practical experience. Another thing that, as I was talking with Dennis and learning about the program, especially around the satellite programs, are the real life experiences. So last year, there's a great partnership that the business management program and Dennis has created with Fox 19. So last year, they partnered with Raising Cane's. If you guys remember the Raising Cane's, the chicken place, the franchise here in the Ohio area, to create recommendations for promotional campaign for them to attract and retain employees. So they're using their classroom experience with real world examples. And so 6 school teams were created, and they got to present to executives, both at Fox and at Raising Cane's, in marketing, HR, and operations, to use the skills they're learning in class with these actual companies for them. And really the business problem was how to attract and retain employees. So I thought that was, coming from kind of the business world or whatnot, I thought that was really, really amazing that they did that last year. And this year it's continuing. So again, in partnership with Fox, with Dennis and his program, they extended it this year to the marketing essentials class as well. Last year it was just kind of the core juniors and seniors, but they're partnering with Maple Knoll Village, and really based on their focus areas and operational goals, they are proposing integrated marketing campaigns for Maple Knoll. So there's 17 school teams that were formed, and the judges are going to be by Fox 19, and the best ones are going to be presented. So these are just some examples of what our vocational program is doing, or your career tech program is doing with Great Oaks and Wyoming. So there's a lot more to come for this year and for years to come. So my point is that there's great things happening with our students. I want to give you guys 2 last updates. The first one is, obviously based on everything with the racial injustice and everything happening last year, Great Oaks and the board and Harry Schneider, superintendent, felt compelled to really put some effort behind diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the board has created a board program, board committee called the Diversity and Unity Committee. It was formed in 2020. There are 8 members of the Great Oaks board who are part of the committee. And a couple of key things that the group has done thus far is there's a mission statement that was created, which you see here on the screen. It's the Great Oaks Board of Directors is committed to inclusion, access, and equity and diversity for the success and growth of the Great Oaks community. And this is like I said, this is a board-run committee, and the point is to help influence all of the Great Oaks School District. And right now, they've had some key meetings with a couple of college professors to onboard them on DEI training. So Dr. Rodney Coates from Miami and John Ernst from Thomas More are a couple of the professors they've been partnering with to really figure out what this training and development look like for this group. And then lastly, there were just to highlight a couple of key visitors that the board had or the Great Oaks had over the past year. So Representative Cindy Abrams, the U.S. Secretary of Labor, Eugene Scalia, and then the Ohio Attorney General, Dave Yost. Great Oaks always has kind of who's who of state, sometimes national visitors come through. And these are just a couple of examples of folks that have come through. So that's all I wanted to report back to everyone. I've got a bunch more information, which I'll send you the presentation on some building projects that are happening. But those are the key things I wanted to for you to walk away with, that our students are doing well. Great Oaks, weathered the storm of COVID, and our students and the program is thriving. That's all I've got.
Great update.
Great update. Yeah,
Thank you.
Any questions for me?
Great Oaks is going, you're going back in the spring, according to your presentation, which do they expect to be back to full status in the August then?
Yeah, definitely. So the enrollment process is happening right now. So even with the satellite programs, the requested registrations are higher than they were last year. So, definitely Harry's intent is to get things back to full speed ahead.
Okay, good.
As with everybody, I think we all want to be back to full speed ahead at some point.
Right.
I just think it's always so helpful. You put such a nice presentation together all the time, Justin. It's nice to see it. Thank you for serving on the board, and it's really interesting to hear what people are interested in and how they're doing. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad it was appealing to the eye. Thank you. So good.
Yeah.
And great to see the success that our kids are having there and taking advantage of these opportunities in a very successful way. So exciting. Good.
And
I was very impressed. And I think there's opportunity with the business advisory committee potentially getting our students connected somehow to do some real world work.
Has the number of our students stayed relatively the same? You said 12 this year.
Yeah, it was 8 a couple years ago. This number feels a little higher than in years past. So, but we always hover in that zone.
But am I correct? Great Oaks is an open district, so anyone can, like someone from Cincinnati Public could go there, correct?
Yes.
Is that where we are
That
now?
is correct. Yep. That's correct.
That was very helpful.
Pardon?
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, we've got 36, call it, districts that are part of Great Oaks. Wyoming obviously is included, Marymount, all of the usual suspect. Indian Hill is there, Sycamore, and CPS and others who aren't part of it can enroll in Great Oaks as well.
Okay.
The business class that you mentioned, that's open to all Wyoming students, does the teacher come to Wyoming for that? That?
He's a teacher. He's a full-time teacher, Dennis Schaper.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys know him?
Obviously, I do not.
He's good. I didn't know him. He's also the track coach, apparently.
Right. That's what I was going to say. It's excellent track coach.
Yeah.
Well, he's obviously touching a lot of kids' lives, so I'm glad to know a lot more detail about him.
Yeah, I really do think that the program, the business program that the satellite has at Wyoming is like a little hidden gem, because when you think about even college applications and working in the world, like these are experiences and things that really differentiate students when they're looking at opportunities post high school. So I wish these programs existed when I was at Wyoming. I definitely would have participated in DECA and Business Professionals of America, and just getting an ability to compete on this national scale is awesome.
That was one of the things I was thinking about relative to what the programs are and what's in it. You talk about business kind of things, which can feel real world, but also like things that help aspiring, kind of students who feel like they've got all the tools and all that kind of thing. I think sometimes there's a lack of awareness around Great Oaks, or you kind of think of it as trade school kind of thing, only, and people think of it as less than in some way versus some other experiences you can be in now as well as after. What you shared in the presentation was very compelling. I don't know how we communicate, with students, or how that's a normal part of their coming into high school process for them to have that level of awareness, but it seems like, there's a lot of good stuff happening there. I'd be interested to make sure people see and know it's there.
Yeah, I think just sharing some of these success stories and the programs, like the DECA organization, 225,000 members. I mean, that's, I think about, the grad school programs, like the business school programs and engineering schools. Like it's the same type of caliber. I think the other thing is just, Wyoming, Indian Hills, and the world they're very college prep. But I think when you talk about applying to college and then applying for jobs, you forget about the other experiences that kind of round out students. And these are the exact type of experience that, as an interviewer myself, you're like, tell me more about that. Like you've heard all of the classes and the APs and this, that, and the other thing. Like, that's interesting. You competed at a national level and you did this. You helped Raising Cane with their attraction and retention program. Tell me more about that. Like, I think those are kind of stories that we could tell to make it more compelling.
Great.
So that's all I've got, but happy to share more if you got, if you want to email me or whatnot, and I'll send you this presentation. So I've got more information on it as well. There's a lot of great building campaigns that are happening at Laurel Oaks and Live Oaks out on the Northeast and the East side. So great things are happening. The Oaks are growing.
Yeah, thank you for your leadership
Thank
in
you,
that
Justin.
space and
Yeah.
Thank you,
representing
Justin.
us so well.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Thanks, Justin.
Take care, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. We are ready for Board of Education reports. And that brings us to the first reading of a number of policies. If I just do a generalization to get us started. Yeah, don't get too excited, Ilya. This is exciting stuff, though. But if I just do a general opening, I want to say that many of these things are legal updates, changes in the law that have necessitated sometimes a word or even in one case a comma. And the other thing is that some of them are mechanical. So when I asked you to read through some of them, when we go through the changes, you're going to see there's not really much of a change. It's just that they were kind of important policies that it doesn't hurt for us to have kind of in the back of our head that we know we have those as policy. Okay, Rhonda has kindly said she will talk on the money ones because some of the decisions, another one of the things that you're going to find is some of the legal things in terms of some of the money things. It's how you do it. It's what the procedure is that your particular district has adopted. So we'll do that. Erin, I don't know how you want. We didn't actually plot out we didn't put a script together, so we can pop through here. If I can get everyone who was at the meeting to jump in, please, because I'm
Absolutely.
going to be working off my computer. So we begin with 1422, which is non-discrimination and equal employment opportunity. This is looking at some of the Title IX, just as you can see, some fine tuning changes. There's a whole additional definition section, and this is part of the law that has been added in so that we're all speaking the same language in terms of our definitions. And actually, with the exception of that, there's only one, if you'll notice in the first paragraph, there's one change. It's also it's a verbiage. Instead of transgender, we now talk gender identity.
Mhm.
Is there anything else? Anybody?
Jeannie, I'll throw out a couple more things. Number one, there was another definition of days in this particular policy, and actually in all the policies. I think there are, if I'm not mistaken, Jeannie, 12 or 13 policies affected by this very same language.
Exactly.
But days is important because all of these policies do have critical deadlines, and the definition of days in all of these is school business days for the city schools. There is some language around new definitions of complainant or clarification of definitions of complainant and respondent. And all these definitions did come from Neola. And I think, as Jeannie alluded to, this is mainly language changes. This doesn't change the substance of really how we apply these policies is kind of what we took away from our discussions with Neola. So Jeannie, maybe if I can, I'll just walk through, unless anybody has any objections, all the policies touched by these changes, so we can kind of say we've got these 12 in the same bucket, and then we can move on to the other policies. Any objections to me doing that?
No, that is absolutely necessary, or we'll be talking the exact same thing 12 times.
Exactly. So I'll slowly go through those. So either those who are watching us on YouTube or anybody here knows the policies that are in question. So it's not only 1422, but it's also 1623, 1662, 2260 and 2260.1, 2266, although there's more to share on that in just a bit here, 3122, 3123, 3362, 4122 and 23, 4362 and 5517. So any that I missed there? Jeannie or Tim? Okay.
No, that's my list.
Great. Okay.
Okay. And we'll mention that as we walk through, but we'll probably not do any more conversations other than because they're going to be similar to what we've just said. Unless someone has a question or Heather.
So I did have one question on 2266, which could correlate to a few of them, and I might not have realized it until that one. Do you want me to wait, or you want me to ask it now?
On 2266, wait, because there are a couple differences we will get to.
So, okay.
Yes.
And some of it's not new, it's old. And I remember when I was on policy committee with Aaron, just needing a little refresher on something. So I'll hold on that. Yep.
Okay. All right. And then I guess the only other thing to talk about on all of these is there's a whole process for complaints, and that also includes naming our district officers, and that I'm sure you've seen as well. All right. So if we go to the next one is 1623. I'm just going to keep going. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And then 1662 is the next one on the list.
Yep. And
unless someone has something to say, I'm going to keep going on that. And now
I just wanted to say, like with 1623, and I know that we do this as a matter of practice, but it does have language in there about making reasonable accommodation for a qualified person with a disability. And I don't think I'd ever noticed that particular language, like it is reasonable to expect some accommodations if there's, vision issues or what have you. So I thought that was interesting. I don't think it was even new, actually. But.
Right. And some of that just picks up, picks up off the law. And then we supply our interpretation. All right, so I believe we are at 2240, which is controversial issues. And the change here really kind of falls in line with this line that was taken out. Wait a minute. It also has to do with religion too.
Right.
And basically the fact that students, you're allowed religious expression and you're not prohibited by location. So that can be religious expression in a project, in a reading, something you're doing within the classroom, as well as
right, to allow it to go outside of lunch periods or non-instructional periods, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is it still allows religious expression in terms of clothing that is not negative. So you could wear a cross, you could wear a Star of David, but you cannot have a t-shirt that says something negative about that particular religion. Okay. So those are my notes. Anybody else?
You covered it, Jeannie.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think you covered it. So,
okay, let's
you
go.
want me to jump in on?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm working off my iPad.
Oh, please. Yeah, that's fine.
Paper, and I'm not as happy as I am when I've got paper. So I'm sorry.
I got you. I've got paper notes, so we're in great shape.
All right, good.
So what I'm going to do is
I just had a question.
Oh, sure, Elliot, please go ahead.
Aaron,
Yeah.
on 2240, I saw that you noted what the changes were. I was recalling, conversations before about even things around what we're reading in classrooms and sort of that kind of thing, and trying to. I know there's some recent discussions and folks are asking various questions about that. Does that kind of thing, is that impacted here? I see that it talks about things that are for use in the instructional program, and so it's kind of framing that there will be some, I guess, license given, in places where someone may feel like something is controversial, they may not like a given thing or what have you, but as long as, I guess, it says it's not intended to shape someone's opinion, or that it's for the purpose of scholarly inquiry. I remember even years ago we were talking about books that had the N-word and other kind of things. Is that content the thing that this policy covers? And this is where our district speaks to that?
I think it definitely comes into play and when that is a question, I think we certainly look to this policy as part of that conversation. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay. I didn't know if it was covered somewhere else. Okay.
And I think it's broad too, like the idea that it would be expected that the classroom is a place for discussion, and the parameters are set for that. But there are things in recent times that we as a district have set our values and we don't consider controversial. So that comes into play too when you look at a policy that talks about controversial issues. Systemic racism and acknowledging that, and issues in our world like poverty, homelessness, those sorts of things. There may be ideas of different approaches, but we do talk about them in the classroom and don't consider that controversial. So I just think that's important with that policy. Not everything as a district would be controversial just because someone would say it's controversial.
Oh, it's very helpful.
I think, Elia, that also you will see some mention in, say, a selection policy in terms of selection of materials, books, etc. You might see it in our bullying. You might see it in our harassment. And so you may see this particular issue finds its way into other policies, not just this one on controversy. To me, the most important thing, though, is that it's related to the instructional goals of the course of study. I mean, in the process of teaching what's happening in our world and how we're dealing with it, we don't always, sometimes we get to a controversial place, but we're following our curriculum.
Well, isn't that part of our, our vision and focus of educating the whole child?
Exactly.
We're gonna have a whole person.
Right.
These,
I think Kara's point earlier also is relevant. I know there's some discussion on what books we read in terms of studying a given person, and if that person is on the left or the right, and there could be a reaction to that around how do we make sure it's equally balanced. If we study this person, then we need to study from the other side. And so I think just understanding that this is a space where that is addressed, and that it's intended, that it is for the purpose of the class's intent, and it's for scholarly inquiry is helpful for me context-wise in how we respond to those inquiries.
Right,
Helpful.
exactly. All right, I will pass on to 2260, and then I'm going to keep moving 2260.01, and then move on to 2266, which is non-discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs or activities. And there is, I'm sorry, go
two
ahead.
Notes. Oh, go ahead, Jeannie. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm working.
I was going to say that the two notes that I have on this one are it capitalized, very, very, very minor, capitalized the phrase third party, but more substantively did revise the definition of sexual assault and added what are described as non-forcible offenses to that definition. And also added that the superintendent can implement appropriate remedies at any stage in the process before an investigation is complete, as opposed to sanctions or consequences, which are usually at the end of an investigation. So there may be times when the super needs to intervene before an investigation has run its course, and that the superintendent is allowed to do so. That clarifies that.
Right.
Questions on 2266?
I did have one. Oh, shoot. And I'm scrolling through now, Aaron. I wrote it down on 2266. Okay. Oh, all right. So it's on, this is not a part, I just need some clarity either from Dr. Whiteley or Tim. I think, Aaron, when you and I did this before too, we've talked about this. It's like on the top of page 6. It's emergency removal, and it just triggered, it doesn't have to be just in that part. Could you help me recall, what if there is a student who, like there's a respondent, what if a fellow student and actions occur off of school grounds, but they are in classes with a person? So there's a complainant and a respondent. Something might not be happening all the time on school grounds, but then they're spending the day with that person. What does that look like? What's our role? Is that something that they could still come to you all, and what does that look like? Am I explaining that question well? You know how sometimes things don't happen face to face during the class day, but you know, things are happening not in the class day, and then you're sitting there in class with that person. Is there a process for that? And did I miss it trying to read through the 14 pages?
So Heather, normally when that comes to our attention, supportive measures are talked about first. So oftentimes like if a high school student might approach the administration on their own, or maybe it's a principal sometimes if it's a younger, or a parent if it's a younger child at times. And oftentimes they want to discuss, is there a possibility for a schedule change? Is there maybe a change of seating in the classroom? Is there a possibility of separation at lunch? And we call those supportive measures, and we look in to see if those are applicable. There are other times when outside behaviors become so extreme that there are orders in place, kind of restraining orders that don't necessarily lead to an investigation on the school part, but that we have to implement. And again, sometimes that's really talking through the supportive measures in a very small school like we have, right? That's right. You don't have 3 stories like a Mason or somewhere like that to kind of spread out. We sit with the family and we talk about a plan about how that order is going to be enacted to the best of our ability while understanding the constraints of the physical environment.
Okay, thank you. You have helped me with that before, but I was like, am I remembering correctly? Thank you. I just know that that's trickier in Wyoming, and we all know it's happened, and that you're can be sometimes limited, but you want to be supportive.
Sure.
Okay.
And those measures are important because sometimes those things that do happen outside of the school impact what happens inside the school. And they create a change in the environment. Exactly.
Right. Okay, thank you. That was my biggest one. I mean, I know there were a lot of things in there, but when we were just reading it in its entirety, that's what kind of spoke to me the most of follow-up, more than the other semantic changes. Thank you.
Right. All right. So because these are exactly the same, I'm going to skip 3122, 3123, 3362, 4122, 4123. Some of these have to do with classified staff. Some of these have to do with teachers. Some of these have to do with the students, but they are the same policy. Then we'll skip 4362. And we'll skip 5517, which brings us into one of the financial ones, 6144, having to do with investments. According to my notes, this is a grammar change.
Yes, I also have them on the computer here, so I'm sorry that I'm going to have to look at the download. This is very simply just a change of the word "and."
Yeah, right in the early part.
Yep.
So, yep. There it is.
Yep.
Okay. On that note, I'm going to go on. 6620 is budget preparation.
6220, just change the title. This used to be called the tax budget, and it's been called the tax budget in the Ohio Revised Code, and actually still is called the tax budget in the Ohio Revised Code. But some county auditors and county budget commissions have changed their terminology to just budget preparation. And so the policy change just encompasses the entire process of the tax budget by just dropping the word tax and calling it budget preparation, and then adding on to treasurer CFO. So again, really minor changes, nothing of substance.
Okay. Then the next one is 6600, and that is the deposit of public funds, the cash collection points.
6600 adds some additional clarification on what is required in terms of documentation. If somebody who receives money or collects cash, ticket sales, or takes a fee payment at a building, and there's any sort of discrepancy in the receipt. So it just sort of spells out exactly how that is supposed to work if there's a discrepancy, and also specifically points out that acceptance of cash or credit card overpayment to provide cash back is prohibited. So if I need, we're not Kroger where you can come and write a check for $20 and get $10 back. Which we have never done, but now is formalized in board policy.
All right.
Which is not a denigration of Kroger, right? I mean, it's just stating we see things differently.
Exactly. Yes. Kroger provides a lovely service. We just don't do that.
It's a great organization.
All right. 744, excuse me, 0.01. Video surveillance and electronic monitoring. And the changes here, I'm so sorry, are pandemic oriented. I'm going to mute while someone else does.
All right. This policy addresses the installation of video cameras on district premises, in particular in regards to staff and teacher evaluations. The policy has been revised to say that the district can only conduct evaluations using video or live stream if they are done in accordance with the law, with our teacher contract, or through a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, where the district and the teachers agree that that is an addendum of the contract that can be done. So it's a pretty straightforward policy in that regard, but it just says we can't use video and live stream unless we have it in the contract or through an MOU.
And also the idea of giving advance notice. Right. When you're going to be doing an observation of either I guess a live stream. So I think that's really important as well.
Right.
Absolutely.
All right.
I think part of that was recordings of students. I think this is pretty important, will be treated as confidential. Mm-hmm. And they're not necessarily talking about a play or an event or something like that that's recorded, but if you you are recording them and in any way sharing that, they would have to be notified in advance of that.
Right. That's the paragraph right under the green insert, if anybody would like to pull up with that. There's the line about parents and guardians of minor students and students who are minors may look at relevant portions of a video, but not, there's still privacy among other people who are not part of the
so they could watch their own student,
their own child, but not someone else's. Yes. All right. 7450, if I can go on, is property inventory. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. 7450 makes again some minor changes. Talks about making sure that our inventory is reconciled with our year-end financial reporting, and we do that on the basis of GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, in accordance with GASB, generally Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So just clarifies that, and then further calls out the procedure where if we're going to dispose of fixed assets, how we do that, and also when disposal is required when a piece of equipment has been purchased with federal funds, specifically spells out how that happens, and that's in compliance with federal mandates.
All right, thank you. 7455 is the accounting system for capital assets.
So
Which-
7455, mainly, we've, I guess, moved away from the term fixed assets, which used to be common language to describe our capital assets, which I guess is why we're changing the verbiage now to be capital assets. So that's the major change. And then also really just groups together the classification. And again, goes back to the standards of GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, and also FASB, the Financial Accounting Standards Board, which governs all of our GAAP and accrual entries at year-end reporting. So just formalizing some of our practices.
All right, thank you. 8500 has to do with food services. If you look down, it talks about students with unpaid meal balances. We will not stigmatize them for not being able to cover the cost of their lunches. And now that's, while that is a practice here in Wyoming, now it's formalized.
Mhm.
And the last one to talk about is 8510. It has to do with wellness. The big item here has to do with the fact that we'll have drinking fountains. The free drinking water shall be available to students. That's the line.
I mean, that's a big one that for us, it seems like obvious because we have drinking water, but it just goes to show you that that is a necessary sentence to have on a policy that, you know, some people don't have it. So, that's what jumped out at me because great for us, I'm like, of course there's water.
I know, right.
I think that for me on that one, it focused a lot on the physical elements of wellness. And so when I was thinking about wellness, I was considering what are the other pieces. We talk whole child and everything else. I was trying to understand if there's other policy things that speak to any of those spaces or not, or it's still kind of an emerging area that we haven't put into words. How we are intentional about the mental or emotional elements of wellness as well. Is it in a separate policy?
Thoughts too.
Kara, I missed.
What was that?
I had those same thoughts when I read it, and I know that policy in particular isn't necessarily about that, but I was thinking kind of along the lines of Ilya.
Well, and it did say too, Ilya, because one of my questions for that was, I just couldn't recall who was on the committee. You know how it says there's a wellness committee. I mean, I know this year has been so different, but that, like the variety of people that would be on it, did we, what's the story there? Like who's on that?
Go ahead,
Anybody
Tim.
know? Does anybody know?
Well, I think, I
Or is
think
that paused?
these are all factors that are a major part of the conversation right now. As we had a conversation here at the central office this morning, just about the mental health aspect of returning to school for students who have been in school, for students who have been in and out, for students who have not even entered in for a year. And so it's interesting to speak to that. And so what I'd like to do, knowing that this is a first read, I'd really like to pull those policies together and maybe speak to those at our planning meeting that we have coming up. Actually, I think that's next week. And so we could speak to that. We can speak to the team that's in place and what some of the things are that are being considered, thought about, worked on. Because just as I shared in the conversation this morning, there's an academic piece that we're obviously focused on, but there's a wellness piece that goes way beyond academics when we think about re-entering school next year. So I've got it on my agenda to talk about all of those things that are upcoming planning meeting, if that's okay.
Absolutely. That would be good information to have, because
Okay.
I certainly can't answer the question of what else do we have.
Mm-hmm.
I like that idea. Okay, good. I guess that's it. Now, those were first readings, so we have a month to discuss or answer questions or have consideration, and you can read through again. At the second reading, we will not go through these in detail. We'll call for questions in a general way, and then we'll approve or not approve. So at the moment, I need a motion to approve the Board of Education report. You are not approving the policies at this moment. You're just approving our discussion. May I have a motion?
Oh, so moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call?
Mr. Mace,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. G,
Yes.
Mrs. Zoller.
Yes.
Frederick.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we have the treasurer's report.
Thank you, Jeannie. Item A, request approval of the minutes from the board meetings on February 22nd, the regular meeting, and March 9th, the planning meeting. Item B, approval of the statement of revenues and expenditures for month ending February 28th. Item C, appropriation adjustments that were submitted. The major appropriation adjustment there was the appropriation of our second round of ESSER funding. It was allocated by ODE formally, so we wanted to make sure we got that appropriated, and then a few other student activity appropriations. Item D, accept with appreciation the donations listed on the agenda. Item E, approval of a service contract with SWOCA for fiscal services from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024. Item F, approval of the report, please.
Okay. I have a quick question on the SWOCA. That is that an annual? No, it's not an annual thing. It's a 4-year. Did they change their name or something? I don't know why this doesn't seem familiar to me.
So we previously had an agreement with HCC for our fiscal services.
Oh, okay. All right.
And yeah, and we
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking to make a change. Probably important to mention that we also get student services from HCC, Progress Book, Dazzle, and such. Those will remain with HCC.
Okay.
So
All
this is approval of the switch on the fiscal services side.
Okay. Thank you. That now I'm sorry. And you actually tried to tell me that once too. All right. Thank you. All right. May I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
So moved.
And a second.
Seconded.
And a roll call.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. G,
Yes.
Mrs. Zoller,
Yes.
Mrs. Broderick,
Yes.
Mr. Mace.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. The superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you, Jeannie. I do have several personnel items that are being recommended tonight, so I'll just go through each one of these. Number one is to approve resignations that have been submitted. And so I will just take a moment to share. We have three, Lauren Karras, who's a high school social studies teacher, Carrie Simmons, who is a primary school library aide, and Adam Reed, who is the high school principal. And just wanted to take a moment to say thanks to these folks for the individual ways that they support students and staff and families. And we know they're moving on to different things. And so we say thank you to them, but wish them the best of luck in their next endeavors. And so it's great to celebrate. You know, we're not done with the school year, so it's great to celebrate the work that they've done and will continue to do in those roles. But we appreciate what they've done for us. Likewise, number two, resignation for the purpose of retirement. So it's special when we can recognize someone who is finishing their career as an educator, Karen Reiber. And so she is going to be retiring. And again, not saying goodbye, not yet. We're going to make sure that Karen goes out in style and we celebrate the great work that she's done and the impact that she has made on our entire school community. You know, when you know Karen, you know that she doesn't stay in place. You know, she brings everybody into the work that goes on in not just in the media center that she's located, but throughout the entire building and in the district. Just so many ways that she connects and builds relationships that create opportunities for students and families. And so congratulations to her. And again, we will find great ways to celebrate before we are finished. Number 3, we do have a recommendation to approve and 2 unpaid leaves that have been submitted. Number 4, we have a recommendation for additional workdays for our district nurse, Nicole Murphy, and this is connected to contact tracing throughout the pandemic. And number 5, recommendation to approve an additional instructor for the after-school intervention program. And you can see a note on the agenda there that is paid for through our CARES funds. And number 6, we have a recommendation to approve these winter athletic workers. And so these are folks who have done work throughout the winter sporting events. Number 7, recommendation to rescind these athletic supplemental contracts. These individuals are not going to be participating in these roles. And number 8, a recommendation to approve these athletic supplemental contracts. These are all for spring sports. Number 9, recommendation to approve the non-athletic supplemental contract. Excited to be looking at chess club. We're not going to finish the year without that. And it sounds small, but it's actually a big deal. And so it's just one more step into moving into a more normal thing. And I know that we've got several folks who are going to be excited about that. Number 10, recommendation to approve 21-22 proposals for athletic supplemental positions. Actually, it's going to be just the first one, the high school cross-country varsity assistant coach. The second, we're going to hold on. There are some changes that are going to be made to that. So it's really just recommending the approval of the first one. Number 11, proposals for non-athletic supplemental positions for next year. And these are actually revisions to these programs. And you can see it's a revision to the percentage pay. And then the last one, this is a recommendation for the 21-22 non-athletic supplemental position name change. And that's going to be going from the high school flag corps to a director to the high school color guard director. Any questions?
Does changing the title do any, like, is it a title change? Does that have any change in anything else? Just curious for the last one, from flag corps director to color guard director. So just a
it doesn't change the content of the program at all. Nope.
Curious. Okay.
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 All right. Then may I have a motion to approve the superintendent's report?
So moved.
Second.
We got them all. And may I have a roll call?
Mrs. G,
Yes.
Mrs. Zoller,
Yes.
Mrs. Broderick. You're on mute, but I saw you mouth yes, so I'll take it. Mr. Mead
Yes.
and Mr. Thomas.
Affirmative.
Yes.
We need hand signals
Right.
to do this. All right. Thank you. Superintendent update.
Okay, it's a brief update today. It's great to be back. We hope everyone had a wonderful spring break and enjoyed time with family, just got to catch their breath a little bit and relax. It was great to see people coming back today on a beautiful day. It stays lighter outside later. Those of us who are here at the board office noticed that. It was a nice, pleasant change. We've got lots of great things happening as we head into the final part of the school year, the final stretch. We've got spring activities that are in the midst of being planned right now. High school, as you know, we've got prom coming up very soon, and we're making plans for graduation. Excited to be looking at those plans. If you think about where we were a year ago, very different enthusiasm and movement as we head into those specific events. Our middle school is working on plans for the 8th grade celebration, and I know our students are going to enjoy what they're looking at. Our primary students are going to be participating in field day activities. So all of those things are in the works right now, and it's going to feel really good for our kids to be able to celebrate the way we want them to celebrate the amazing accomplishments that they've had this year. Again, we talk about the struggle of going through the pandemic, but it's impossible not to recognize the individual and group accomplishments that have been made. And it's easy to forget about them until but we've got to take time to recognize the amazing effort that has been made across the board in Wyoming, and our students are at the top of that list. So again, excited about that. We're also thrilled about looking at planning for the future. Many of the things that I've talked about in the meeting tonight, we'll capitalize on. We are looking at focus groups right now. This week we have meetings for focus groups with students, with staff members, with parents and community members, all set to identify the characteristics that we're looking for in our next leader for Wyoming High School. And so those are exciting, very important conversations that are taking place this week. We'll soon be communicating plans for the start of the 21-22 school year, which again seemed to be moving in a much more normal, typical way, which I think is exciting for everyone. But we've got to make sure that we have those details in place that support where we are or where we might be with regard to COVID. And then also, again, we're going to be rolling out soon plans for that the strategic plan, which comes from the important work of the Citizens Advisory Committee and their study that they had completed last year. And we're excited to be rolling out that process here in the spring and throughout the year next year. So lots of good things that get us back on track again to make us capitalize on the successes that we've had, but a push to make us even better in the future.
Tim, I had a question relative
Yes.
to the focus groups that you're going to do in gathering community input on the principal for the high school. I know we've done these in the past, including when we were identifying what we would want to have in our superintendent. We had sort of segments of the population that were designed to come to different ones. Imagine, I don't know, is that included in the approach for this one so that any individual is invited to come to one of them, but discouraged from coming to 9 of them? Or how is that being set up?
We've really, so what we've done is we've opened it up to everyone. And so we're specifically, tomorrow I'll actually be meeting with the high school staff. But outside of that, we've opened up those focus groups to anyone who wanted to be involved. We've asked them what their connection is to the school district, whether that's a community member, a staff member, or a parent at the different levels. But really anyone was able to connect with that conversation. And if they're not able to do that, that's one of the reasons we wanted to make sure that we put a survey out to ask those same questions, because we want to make sure that we've got input from everyone, even if they can't be involved in those conversations.
But the idea is like I guess the 2 you're having for the community parents, they're the same questions are going to be. So you don't need to go to multiple.
Right. That's a good question. It's really, we wanted to make sure there were multiple opportunities in case you couldn't make one of the events. Yeah, it's the same discussion, same feedback that we're looking for. But yes, just another opportunity.
I think maybe we're zeroed in on such a very specific search here, in that we're looking for the qualities of a high school principal. We're very zeroed in, as opposed to when we, in a few weeks, months, whatever, we're going to turn around and do this again for our strategic plan, where we'll be looking at many different aspects that make the district what it is. So
Right.
Well, Tim, I really thank you all for opening this discussion up to the community and taking input from not only teachers and students, but also from the parents. And because the high school, obviously that principal position is a really important position, and you wouldn't have to take in that kind of feedback, but reaching out with the survey and the discussion is really, what we tried to do with the superintendent search, what you did when you first came and had the community discussions. And obviously you're doing it again and found it very helpful, but I think that's what we want to do and hear from our community.
Yeah, I agree. And the more feedback we have, the better that makes us. And our goal is to make sure that we're putting the plans in place that ensure what happens in and of every classroom for every student is the very best that it possibly can be, and to take kids where they are, whether that's academic, socially, emotionally, and to move them forward from that point on. And so that's what we're looking for. And I feel optimistic. I'm excited about that, and excited to be partnering together with all these folks to make it happen. Thank you.
nice. All right. Thank you. And I'm looking around. Okay. So basically what we're going to do now, we will not adjourn. We need to move to executive session. So I'm asking for a motion to move to executive session to consider the employment of a public employee. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Elia. May I have a second?
Second?
Kara, may I have a roll call?
Mrs. Zoller,
Yes.
Mrs. Broderick,
Yes.
Mr. Meese,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. G.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so we will be moving out of this session into an executive session. We will be back at the end of executive session, but that will be